2 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with cancer for the second time. A bit of a shock because he had bowel cancer 10 years before, and he'd got through it, but this time he was 10 years older. And it was cancer of the esophagus, so this time it was quite different. And actually, I'll share with you a funny story actually. My husband always affectionately referred to him as having a semicolon because he had part of that removed. But this was a bit different. At this stage, he had to endure 3 rounds of chemotherapy. And he went through an operation where he had a 50-50 chance of survival. I'm Karen Williams, and I want to ask you a question today, and that is this: are you ready to die? Now, dying is a really taboo subject, isn't it? It's one of those things that people don't talk about. It's one of those things that people don't want to acknowledge, but it's the one sure thing in life, isn't it? We're all going to die at some stage. So how do we approach it? I want to share some statistics with you. There was an Australian nurse she worked with people in the last few months of their lives in Australia who were suffering from cancer. And she wanted to establish the 5 regrets of these people. What would they have loved to have done but they hadn't done before they died? And I'm going to share these 5 with you this afternoon. So the first one was this, was that if you got to the end of your life, the last thing that you would want to do is saying, I wish I'd spent more time at work. I wish I'd spent more hours on the treadmill or in the office. You wouldn't, would you? And this is where I want to share my story, because back in January 2006, I realised that I was on that treadmill. I was on that treadmill while I was doing a job which was okay, it was mediocre, but it didn't light my fire, it didn't light my passion, and I wanted to do something about it. So I did what a lot of people do. I find out now, I got myself a life coach, I changed my job, and at the time I decided to train as a coach myself and inspire others to live a better life. And the second one is that some of these people did not achieve their dreams. And I'm going to share 2 stories with you. Some of you may have heard of the young lad, the 19-year-old Stephen Sutton, who sadly died this week. He knew he had incurable cancer, and he created that bucket list of things that he wanted to do before he died, and he achieved so many things on that. And my friend Sarah, she went through a difficult time, back in, a few years ago, her mother died, her brother died within a very short period of time. So she thought, sod it, I'm going to hire a camper van for 6 months and I'm going to travel around Australia. And she did it. She had that dream and she wanted to achieve it. But what she didn't know at that time was that she was going to die herself. And in 2008, age 42, she died from pneumonia. Something that's so sad for somebody so young. And it had a real effect on me, but I can't see the colour pink without thinking of her, and I can't hear ABBA's Dancing Queen without remembering her funeral. And the third one is that a lot of people who reach the end of their years would like to be happier. Happier. Don't we take it for granted that we're going to be happy? In 2012, I did a project for a year called A Year to Live, where during that year, I embraced life. And I followed some of the principles in Stephen Levine's book of the same name, where I'm going to share 3 principles with you. One is forgiveness. Because how often do we hold grudges or forget to forgive ourselves or berate ourselves, have a go at ourselves for things that we've done that maybe we should just let go? Gratitude. How often are we really grateful for some of the things that have happened to us? Do you write a gratitude journal? At the end of every day, do you actually think about, what I've achieved and what what you're grateful for in your life? And there's also something about living in the moment, which I embraced that year. I became a firewalk instructor, and on the final night of my training, I did over 100 firewalks on hot coals. I went skiing for the first time, which in my late 30s, was a big deal for me, and I'm not very good, but I still do it. And I jumped out of an aeroplane. And picture me now, first person out the plane, so I was strapped to a nice young man, so that did help. Absolutely petrified of heights, just about to go, okay, why am I doing this? And one of the principles in Stephen's book is that you write a letter to your loved one, so if something were to happen to you, they know where to find it. And I did that the night before my parachute jump. So whether that was a good thing or not, I don't know. And I also signed up to do a charity trek to Peru, which I did in September 2013, last year. And that leads me on to number 4. And number 4 is, if you reach the end of your life, you will probably regret not spending time with friends, because in life we tend to lose touch with people, we move on, things change. And that was a chance for me to gain 20 new friends. However, I'd love to say it was easy. Think about when you go to Peru, when you go to Cusco, which is where you acclimatise for the trek. You go from Lima, which is sea level down here, up to Cusco, which is 3,800 metres up here, in about 45 minutes. And I don't know if any of you have done any altitude stuff before, but it makes your head go a little bit screwy. You can't, a bit fluffy, and you can't really work out what's going on. And for some people, they have chest problems as well. And day 3, I was in hospital. And I had all of these Spanish-speaking nurses around me doing ECGs, X-rays, oxygen, nebulizer, antibiotics. I really didn't have a clue what was going on. And I'm texting my husband, who's in the UK, trying to sort out my travel insurance for me, going, I've got Spanish-speaking nurses doing stuff. What I thought was a maintenance guy came in and started taking blood out of me, because he was, an older, scrappy guy, and I thought, what's he doing? But they let me do, 6 o'clock the next morning, they let me do the trek, they let me do the Inca Trail, partly because you go down 1,000 metres, so I can actually breathe again. Because although I wouldn't say I was close to dying, what they suspected could have been a life or death situation. And I got through the Inca Trail, I did it, and my head was a bit all over the place, and trying to get dressed was like a mammoth thing to do, but I did it. And when I got to the Sun Gate, and through the clouds, Machu Picchu came out in front of me, that was an awesome experience. On top of that, we raised over £90,000 for charity, for the Genesis Research Trust, and last Thursday, 3 days ago, we went to a charity presentation at the House of Lords, where we were, I suppose, recognised for our efforts by Lord, if we get this right, Lord Professor Robert Winston. So that was an amazing experience. And the 5th regret of dying is to not share your feelings with other people. And I'll take you back to my dad. I told you at the beginning that when he went through his operation, he had a 50-50 chance of getting through, and he survived. But 7 months later, April last year, he had a bit of a cough. Wasn't feeling very well, and my mum called out the doctor in the middle of the night. And the doctor was a bit blasé about it. Oh, yeah, you could go to hospital. So we did. He trotted along to hospital, and I remember him saying to my mum, remember what trousers I'm wearing, because when you come and collect me, I want to have a shirt that matches. 5 weeks later, he passed away. He breathed his last breath with myself and my mum by his side. I never did make it. But we had 5 weeks to prepare. 5 weeks of really sharing emotions, memories, feelings, experiences that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So that's my message to you today, and I'd like to end with 2 questions. Are you ready to die? But most importantly, are you ready to live? Thank you.
Thank you.